The IMF says it expects global growth to be around 3% for 2023. That's a downward estimate on its view of 3.5% in earlier forecasts. For South Africa, it sees tepid growth of 0.3% and worries that the country's debt trajectory is set to hike further.
On the debt issue, this is a very important challenge for South Africa. We are expecting debt to grow further into the future years. So our projections, for instance, for the share of revenues that has to go into just paying the interest payments on that debt is projected to grow from 19% this year to 28% in 2028. Now, this year, South Africa spent about 13% of its budget on health. So we're talking about a number that's at least twice as big as the number for health spending this year.
Gopinath says it's not yet clear the kind of impact technologies like artificial intelligence will have on jobs, but says societies need to ready themselves for the changes these will bring. But she says South Africa needs to deal with its long-standing structural issues to better ensure increased job prospects in any event.
The quality of education needs to be improved. Labour market flexibility is going to be very important. Product market competition is going to be very important. And if you want to be able to have growth and create jobs, you need an energy sector that works. Right? And that's critical. I mean, addressing the energy crisis that South Africa faced this year, for instance, is absolutely important to make sure that you can have a growth of industry and you can have jobs being created.
With talk of new COVID cases in the United States and concerns of a new wave of infections being spoken about at the margins, Gopinath says it makes sense for the world to do things differently to avoid the catastrophic decisions that were taken to lock down economies.
It's very important that we have what we call surge financing, which is in 2020, when the pandemic hit, there were many countries in the world that needed financing for putting in their vaccine orders in place, that it took a while for that to come. And every month counts in this business. So making sure that there is surge financing available, and yes, the global community is working towards that to put such a mechanism in place at the World Bank, that's going to be very important. It's also very important that we collaborate in terms of information sharing through our surveillance, making sure that whoever's seeing a new strain shares that information very quickly so the global community is ready for that. And we need to do much better in terms of how vaccines get allocated than we did the last time.
When asked about the 15th BRICS summit, which South Africa hosted last week, Gopinath said countries joining forces to boost their economic fortunes was a positive thing and said it could potentially be an opportune development for South Africa's economic fortunes.
In terms of increasing the use of their currencies on the global stage, the best thing the countries can do is have very sound policy frameworks that give confidence in the currency and also make their currency have deep markets, easy convertibility. These are the kinds of steps that will encourage their use by private agents. I mean, that plays an important role.
The IMF says it sees global inflation steadily coming down, pointing at South Africa as having done particularly well in this arena. Local consumer price inflation came in at 4.7% in July on a year-on-year basis, slowing down markedly from the 5.4% print registered in June. With inflation having fallen to within the Reserve Bank's inflation target range, some analysts predict we'll start seeing interest rates declining sometime next year. Nompumelelo Siziba, SABC News, Johannesburg.